Hello and welcome to Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered,
where we will be discussing fitness, lifestyle, healthy eating habits, relationships, gas station performance pills, answering romantic queries. You have anything else, Tyler? Is there anything? Do you need help with anything right now? Because I feel like I'm in a position where I can help you with it.
I mean, and everything else that we come across as we go. But you know what it's going to be, right?
It's going to be unfiltered.
Most disgusting thing. Yeah. I was like, I couldn't tell if he was serious or not.
Do you remember the wrestler Sting?
Oh yeah.
He would blend orange juice and canned tuna.
Oh god,
that was his carb protein shake. I remember hearing him talk about it. It's like this pink sludge, and he would blend canned tuna and orange juice.
I blended chicken and rice, and like that wasn't too bad. You put it with chicken broth.
I threw up. I did that.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Oh man. What other ones are there? What's that one? Cali Muscle. You remember him? His pre-workout drink. It was like
it's prison pre-workout.
Pepsi
it's Coca-Cola and coffee. Yeah, not straight up prison pre-workout, man.
I could see that working.
Instant coffee.
No, it'll fire you out of a cannon. Yeah. But like the sugar and then just caffeine. The raw coffee and the caffeine. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, but I've done it as a kid, just like you see it, and it's like, okay, well, not because of Cali Muscle, but because I grew up in Curry County. There's a lot of convicts that I knew at that time, so it's like, try this. All right.
Hey, it probably works really damn well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's. I've had worse.
We used to have pre-workouts with methamphetamine in them, so.
Craze. That guy's jonesing for pre-workout.
We'd have people come in the supplement store back in the day, and they this dude order like 4 things of Craze. He'd be like, "Is my Craze in yet?
Mm-hmm.
Is my
Never
Craze
been in the gym in his life."
Was that an actual pre-workout?
No, it was. Yeah,
they figured out it had amphetamines in it.
They got pulled off the shelves because it had amphetamines. Yeah. Well, DMAA was in a bunch of stuff, like the original Jack.
I've tried.
Yeah, you can still get, like, as a research chemical, you can still buy liquid DMAA.
Mm-hmm. I probably shouldn't say this, but I actually enjoyed those pre-workouts.
Bro, I did too.
They worked really well. Like, what was the one? It was called like Metamorphosis or something like that.
That's the one I used to use.
That shit was bomb, bro.
So I was sponsored by Bar Nutrition.
Yeah.
And they used to send me, Jesus, I forget the company, but it had like God of Rage and God of War and whatever.
I remember those.
And dude, they had DMAA in it. And dude, you'd be fucking wound up. But when you crashed, it was like you wanted to sleep for a day and a half.
Yeah.
And I would get cold sweats too.
Yeah.
All serotonin gone.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I would get like cold sweats and I would like shake after, like whenever you're crashing afterwards. I'm like, dang, bro, why am I feeling like this? I need to take more carbs. I'm going high.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I took one. I would like hear sounds in the gym and it like hurt my head. I had to go home one time. I was like, it was just like everything, like the people racking weights. I was like, oh. Yeah. Oh no, I did have a friend though. He took, what was that, C4 Super HD or whatever they had.
Yeah.
I remember he read the package wrong. He thought he was supposed to take like 4 capsules. I think that was 4 times a dose. And he was like, I kept hearing voices talking to me while I was doing cardio, so I just went home. And I was like,
no, dude.
Like, dang, bro.
So a client of mine, he's a good friend of mine. I won't mention his name. He'll know exactly what I'm talking about when he hears this. But we were cutting, and I'd listed Yohimbine on his plan, and I think we started like maybe 7.5 milligrams or something. It's not like any kind of high dosage. And I see him pull up one day at the gym, and I look outside, and he's sitting in his truck, and he's just zoned out, just staring like, okay, bro, whatever. And like I look at it again, and I see him backing up. He's leaving. Like maybe he got a phone call, maybe, whatever. So the next day, I'm thinking, if I don't hear from him, I check on him. When he pulls in, he comes inside. I'm like, man, were you okay?
Yeah.
Like, is everything all right? And he's like, I can't take the Yohimbine. And I'm like, what do you make you nervous? Your stomach upset? What's going on? He's like, no, man. Like it was terrible. Like I almost lost my vision. Like I thought like I was gonna throw up. I thought I was gonna have to go to the hospital. Like my peripherals were. And I'm like, did you take 7 milligrams? And he said, yeah. And I weighed it out. I took
weighed it out.
What kind of fucking scale you got? Weigh milligrams, homie. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you bought powder? He said, yeah. What'd you weigh it on? He's like, my food scale. I was like, you took 7 grams?
That's pretty good.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude.
Because you know that
fucking seeing sounds.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, Yohimbine should be taken at 0.2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So roughly the highest I think I've ever put somebody on is 20 milligrams.
That's about myself at point 2.
He
I don't
was
like going
taking
above 12 and a half
what is
myself.
that?
I don't like.
God, what is that, like 400 times, 500
It's about what
times.
you, if you tried to lean out a white rhinoceros, that's about what you would give.
Yes.
So like, but yeah, I can imagine, dude.
I would feel like a complete basket case. Like I'd be in
Oh
an
my God.
asylum.
I'm interested on the science, like the research behind that. Like, what exactly were you?
I don't
going
want to
through?
do the test to find out, but I would. I don't want to be the test subject. But Tyler, would you?
I mean, no, that's like that stuff. Like I like using that for fat burning properties. Like I enjoy.
I mean, it works.
But I'll use like 5.
Yeah.
You know, 5's like what a good sweet spot for me. I'll take it up if I need to.
I don't tolerate it in higher dosages. Like it just the pros and cons. Like I'll take it. Mm-hmm. But if I start getting above 10, you know, I start to get, 12 and a half is kind of like where I like to stop.
Weird.
Yeah, it messes with me a little bit. So
It's like
I'm
a severe anxiety feeling.
It does, man. It makes me and it makes me irritable almost because of that anxiety.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, when I
this?
have clients that are on certain stimulants, like I talk to them first. It's like, how do you handle stimulants? How do you feel? How's your mind right now? How you? And if I see them in the gym, I'm like, how you doing? Doing all right? You good? How we doing?
Nah, do that. But today we have a guest.
We do.
It's our first guest.
Mm-hmm.
We have Daniel Fobode with us today.
Honored to be here. Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. And
So I'm an IFBB pro and Olympian, and I also coach. So that's pretty much it.
yeah. So Danny qualified for the Olympia last year. It was your first year being a pro, right?
Yeah.
So it was his rookie year. He got first at Charlotte Pro, and he placed top 5 at numerous other shows, which is kind of unheard of for a rookie.
He had a really good rookie
in
year.
Classic
Very
Physique
impressive.
too,
Yeah,
which is a
thank
very
you.
hard division.
Very
So
stacked division now.
if you're qualified for the Olympia in your first year, that's a big deal.
Yeah, appreciate
So tell us about your experience though. Like I know the Charlotte Cup was where you qualified. What was that like? Like give us a little rundown of how that went as far as like show day and
that. So Charlotte was awesome. Just winning the show overall. I was a little, I'd say, burned out at that point, but we're still pushing. We qualified from that. The Olympia though was next level. Like just the way we were treated. I mean, obviously the jackets. That's badass. Just having a Olympia jacket. But also meeting people that you've been watching for years, like Breon Ansley, Chris Bumstead, all these big names. It was just surreal being there and actually seeing everything happen. For example, at the check-ins, like there's literally cameras there, people filming, like people taking pictures. Obviously not of me because I'm not that big just yet, but people like Breon and like Bumstead is just you feel like you're in a YouTube video with them. You know what I mean? So it was really cool from that perspective. But it also puts you in you see things from a more realistic lens that we have a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah.
These guys are the top of the genetic chain, These people are exceptional. They're the top in the world. And although so far it might have seemed like I was exceptional, you're getting into a whole nother, it's like going from a school that has 20 people to going to a school that has 100 of them, and they're all better than you.
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
It's like restarting almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I thought it was good, at the shows that I competed at, but whenever I seen the pictures and I seen the guys in person, I was like, yeah, we still have work to do. There's still a lot to do. And, again, though, it's amazing experience. I finished, I think, 4th call out.
Yeah.
So it was still great for me. Obviously as an athlete, you want to place higher than that. But whenever I seen the people there, I thought it was a reasonable placing.
Yeah. You're still young, like you say 27.
27 turned 28 in November. So
yeah, you got a long time left
And
in the
this
sport.
was your first year competing as a pro.
yeah, so I qualified, or I turned pro, I believe in 2022, but that was in May. So I qualified for the Olympia before May of 2024 or 2023.
Okay.
So within that year, I qualified for the Olympia, won my show. Again, it was exceptional. Again, just like going to those pro shows and placing top 5 or meeting these people or even beating people that you've been looking up to for a long time.
Yeah.
So
people that you
was-
looked up to are now, your peers.
Yeah.
Like you're competing alongside them, and to not only go pro, but in the same year qualify for the Olympia. That certainly is a huge testament to the potential that you have already.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Did you meet any weird personalities backstage? Like, you don't have to mention any names, but
Yeah, I'm not gonna mention names,
were there
but-
any pros that you were just like, what the hell? Like,
Yes, there was. And you would be surprised because you'd see these people as very successful and seasoned in being pros and competing, and you'd think they would not be reacting the way they did or act the way they do. Because a lot of times you see bodybuilders as your inspiration, right?
Yeah.
But whenever you take the camera away from them, like if they're not doing a YouTube video or an Instagram reel, it's a whole different, personality. A little bit of what I experienced is specifically 2 people, I'm not going to say who they were, but they're in the top 10 at the Olympia, and they've placed on the top 10 repeatedly. I guess there was cookies that were brought there for all the pros, and they stole all the cookies, and I was like, it's not a big deal, but at the same time, why are you hogging the cookies, bro? Like, I would be concerned about my placing, not stealing the cookies before anybody else gets to them.
That's like something you see amateurs doing at the show.
Right.
They got the candy table.
Right.
I remember at the Indiana show last year, they had this huge dessert table. And I remember before finals even ended, it was completely empty. People still hadn't went out on stage. They were still competing. And I was like, my God. So that's interesting that pros are like that too,
Yeah, you'd be surprised, man. Pros are just like amateurs. We're just like guys that are competing. A lot of the pros you see, everybody knows bodybuilding does not make that much money, right? Whenever you compete, even as a pro, like my pro show, my first pro show was Optimum Classic. I placed 5th. I got $500 or $250. Yeah, $250. I was like, my ticket was way more than that just to get here, and then I have to pay for my wife to watch the show.
So you know what I mean? Spend all the money basically.
The ticket for her was about that because she has to watch the morning show and the evening show, 2 different tickets. So I'm like, this is the only sport where we don't get paid. Like if you're in the NFL, you sit on the bench, nobody sees you, you still get paid. Yeah. You know what I mean? Bodybuilding in general is the only sport that you do not get paid if you show up just to show up. Yeah, although you're top, of the game, top of the sport. That being said, it's an excellent sport. I love it. It's just a little different.
Yeah. I think to your point, sometimes people they idolize people and they put them on a pedestal, and sometimes you forget they're human just the same as anyone else. And in the sports that I've competed in, you see people and you think, well, I mean, just because someone's a world champion or a black belt in jiu-jitsu or this or that doesn't just mean that they're a great person or they're so sometimes unfortunately, character doesn't always go along with that, but yeah, it's awesome when you meet people inside of that you can relate to, that do carry themselves in that way. Yeah. And I'm sure that you met a lot of awesome people there too.
That's what I was going to say. I met a lot of people that were absolutely amazing. Breon, which he has placed like top 3 or 4 in the Olympia, how many years now? Oh yeah. He was like the most nice person that I met there. I've always looked up to him since the, Classic started. So I asked to get a picture with him, and we actually started conversating, which a lot of guys wouldn't do. They would just, hey, take a picture. All right, goodbye. Yeah. But yeah, he was really cool. And what blew my mind was how cool Bumstead was. Yeah. Although he's the most popular and most talked to person at the Olympia. Like, the dude had no ounce of like pride. It was just like, if you talk to him, he'll talk to you, and he'll actually create a conversation. It's not just to be like, hey, I'm gonna put this on the internet, so let's have a good conversation. He would just be in the corner, someone would talk to him, he'll start a conversation.
It's unreal how big of an athlete Bumstead is when you put it into perspective, because he's like insane international level athlete. Like,
when you look at his followers on Instagram, I mean, he's got to be in the top 1%. Yeah. I mean, millions of followers.
He's got more than most American athletes. Like I think he has more than Tom Brady, LeBron James. Yeah.
Which goes, to that point, bodybuilding is so international at this point. I mean, because, you think of American football, like Tom Brady. Yeah, he's an amazing athlete and so on, but that's really kind of an American sport. Yeah. When you get into Europe and so on, it's not really that big a deal. Right. Soccer may be more international, of course, but like bodybuilding, everybody on this planet wouldn't say they wouldn't want to look better. And anybody that steps foot into a gym wants to look better. So, it applies to a great deal of people. So, yeah, he's got a huge platform.
Yeah. That's one thing that you pointed out too that I thought was very important, because I think a lot of people think when they become pro that it's going to like change your life financially. And in a way, what you pointed out is there's a lot more to it. Like, you're actually paying for your membership fee. The only money you're making is through sponsors, or even if you win the show, it's not as big of a payout as you think.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you met me at my first show, like when actually my third show overall, but like my first show coming back from my improvement season, which was like 5 years, whenever I qualified for getting my pro card from a national show. And nothing changed from turning pro to competing as an amateur at that show years ago, financially, from bodybuilding.
Yeah.
How things changed was mostly through social media and like using maybe the competitions as,
advertising.
Yeah, advertising or marketing. But at the same time, during my competition season, it's probably the time that I'm getting the most financial hit. Because I'm not, I financially, afford the sport, is coaching, is, doing the other things that I do to make money for the sport. Because I'm sponsored by Clinical Labs, which is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not like most of those bodybuilders is the top 3 in the world that have the real sponsorships where you make enough money to sustain yourself for your whole year. So most of these bodybuilders, again, great sport, but it doesn't change anything. Your pro card is a personal accomplishment, is not for the world. You're not going to make money out of it. You're not going to, again, you should love the sport, and that's why you should do it. Because if you expect the pro card to change something, it won't.
It's a genuine thing. You got to love to compete to do this. Like it can't be just something you do as a for fun thing. It has to be a lifestyle.
It's too hard on the body to just do it as a hobby. Like if to push it to any level, it's hard on the body. So if you don't love that and you don't love pushing yourself to that point and testing yourself that way, then find something you do. Because there's easier things on the body.
Which it's a question I like to ask, and I want people to kind of open their eyes to this. How hard do you have to push to get in the conditioning that you get into? Because you get in really, really great stage conditioning. Great shape.
That. Thank you.
And that's very hard to do. So I kind of want to discuss with people so they can hear from an Olympian, kind of hear from us. Like, what does that take you?
So the Olympia probably wasn't my best conditioning, just because we had done 5 shows in that season.
That was hard.
Your body was very tired. You worked all year.
Whenever my coach was like, okay, we're starting prep, I was like, oh. Usually I get excited, because you're like, I've been chunky this whole time. I'm excited to see my new growth. I'm excited to get into competition season. But this last time for the Olympia wasn't like that. I needed a reset, and the Olympia was coming, so I just had to get on prep. But the times prior to that, I feel like I've brought exceptional conditioning compared to other guys, and that's why I've placed that high in those pro shows. But a lot of people don't understand whenever they're trying to look a certain way, whether that's bodybuilding or just for yourself. When you're trying to have a six-pack, that's not a natural state for your body. Your body's not made to have a six-pack year-round. So to get there, you might have to take some unconventional methods of higher cardio, lower food. And if you're not responding to that lower food, you might have to get lower. You might have to. So at the end part of my prep for the Charlotte, the one I won, I think I was doing 90 minutes of cardio in the morning, fasted, 90 minutes post-workout. That was 5 to 6 times a week. If I could not take the 6th day, then I would just rest. But if I had the mental and physical fortitude to do it, I would just push through and do the 6th day. And, this back then, around week 14 or 13, out from the show, we would be no carbs. There would be no carbs on the diet. It would be trace carbs from like my proteins and my vegetables, but that would be it. So it would be fiber and basically protein, chicken breast, cod. I would not do beef at that point.
There was no fats as well.
So for the people listening that are complaining about doing 30 minutes of cardio 5 times a week, he's saying he did 2 90-minute sessions a day.
That's 3 hours.
That's 3 hours of cardio. So if you think you've got it tough because you're eating 100 grams of carbs a day and you're doing 30 minutes of cardio a day, there's many, many, many levels to this. And as we talked earlier, there's no 2 preps that are the same, even for the same person. 100%. I'm sure that each prep you had last year was slightly different in some way. But consider that it's and he's saying this and he wasn't complaining about it. And he was saying he did it. That's part of it. So that's the thing, is like clocking in and doing that work and understanding that's part of the job, man. He's done it on the highest level at this point. So, that's coming from an Olympian. So complaining about 30 minutes 5 times a week is really
It's kind of unreasonable and kind of unheard of. But at the same time, a lot of people talk about genetics. Oh, it's your genetics that carried you through. Even if you have genetics, you have to show your hard work needs to take you there. It's not, you can look good for the beach by working out 4 to 5 times a week, doing 20 to 30 minutes of cardio. But if you're trying to take it to the next level or look even better, not even for competition, just to optimize how you look, you have to create some sacrifice. Like there's not going to be anything that's worth it without some sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I tell this to people all the time when I first start working with them. But some way along the line, closer to show day, they forget that. You know, they see their pictures and I'm like, I'm super happy about the progress, but this sucks. I told you it was going to suck. Like,
Yeah.
preps are not going to be easy.
Oh,
Exactly.
exactly. The harder it is, usually the better you look.
Yeah, exactly.
The more miserable you feel.
That's the indicator.
Yeah.
It's like when you start feeling your energy drop and you know, movement becomes less, like even like the little fidgety movements, like your body just sits still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you start feeling, it's like, okay, you're getting in shape.
Yeah.
Like to be that lean doesn't feel good. That's the reason your body doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Exactly.
There was points during my last prep where it was like if I had to move around my dogs in the kitchen, it was like exhausting.
Oh yeah, like I've been to the point like I drop something, I'm like I'll get that later. I'll pick that shit up later when I drop something else. That way I'm not gonna waste time.
It was almost frustrating to move my hands in the right spaces.
Going up
to
the
do
steps,
things.
like if I had steps to go
man.
up to after, because I would used to do the Stairmaster. After doing the Stairmaster for 90 minutes, I was like, I'll call my wife and come give me a hand to get up these.
I'm sleeping downstairs.
Yeah.
That's
It was
crazy,
tough.
man. It's something I don't think a lot of people realize. And I'll have competitors that want to do a show, and I'll get their cardio or tell them like, hey, like I have a girl that's doing a natural show coming up here, and her cardio is at 1 hour and 45 minutes a day, and she's under 50 grams of carbs.
Right.
And she just gets it done. She doesn't complain, and
That's
she
it.
loses about 2 pounds a week. She's coming in perfect.
That's it.
But then I'll have some that are like, I'll talk to them and they're like, I don't want to do more than 45 minutes of cardio a day. I just don't think my body can handle that. Like,
Yeah.
or I don't have time for
Your
that.
body can, but your mind is
Right.
what's
Yes. And it's like, or I have some that will be like, I just think that's making my stress levels too high. And I'm like, no, for some, a lot of you just have to push harder than
That's
you
it.
think to get into the shape for these shows.
That's it.
And I think what we see a lot on social media is outliers. Like I'll see people
Yeah.
post their client that's like, this person's doing zero cardio and
Right.
eating 600 grams of carbs a day, and they're in this like peeled shape. And I'm like, that's not typical, you know?
That's not typical, but also, do you know that for a fact? Have you seen it, or are you just seeing the highlight reel they're posting on Instagram? Because a lot of people aren't very transparent with what they're doing. Is he only taking those drugs and only doing that cardio, or is he saying that?
Yeah.
And to your point though, some people can get by with less, and when you start comparing what you're doing to what somebody else is doing,
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
That's a
I
problem.
think
right there.
one I saw with, there's a guy in Tennessee that gets in incredible shape, but his big thing is he doesn't have to do any cardio, right? No scheduled cardio, that is. So I remember somebody asked me like, why doesn't he have to do any cardio? And well, he's a personal trainer in Tennessee, and he's taking like 22,000 steps a day.
That's
Yeah.
what I was.
So what people don't realize is that guy is just constantly moving. I've talked to him in person, and he's like, yeah, dude, I don't stop moving all day long. So he's like,
Yeah.
if I were to do extra cardio, I just don't need to.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and like whenever you're working with clients or myself even, you're loading and unloading weights, you're walking, so you're constantly working.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
physical.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, you burn a lot of calories that way.
Yeah, so I don't think people think a lot of that stuff. So they see a lot of this stuff on Instagram where it seems like, why does that person have it so much better than me? When in reality, it's like, you may not know the full story.
Exactly.
And there's
Yeah.
other factors too. Like if you've been obese your whole life and you're trying to get a 6-pack, it will take time. It will take extra effort because your body's not used to being that small.
No.
And I had a client who was like, hey man, I had a cheat meal and I went up 4 pounds. We're at 280. We started at 350. So I'm like, I understand this is a jump from the cheat meal you ate, but it's 4 pounds. Look at how much we've lost.
It's
like
small in
it's
the whole
normal.
Yeah.
Because your
aspect.
body's so big, the sodium is going to cause you to retain some water.
Yeah.
The extra carbs is going to cause you to retain some water. Potentially the fat that this burger and fries, whatever you ate, is going to cause you to gain some water. And it's going to be way more than a guy that's 180 pounds. So the 2 pounds that someone might jump in a day because of a burger and fries, for you might translate to 4 or 5.
Yeah, and sometimes people in those situations, when you have lost a bunch of weight, you've got that loose skin, it's a little bit easier to be retentive.
Exactly.
You hold water, so sometimes, you know, and I've dealt with that with people too, and you have to explain that. Like, it's so easy for people to want to compare their page, you know, their chapter 2 to somebody's chapter 10,
Yeah.
and you can't do that. It's like this person's been along a lot farther than you have, and they've started at a different place even.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If somebody's getting extremely overweight, I always try to point out, like, how long did it take you to get all this extra fat on?
Yeah.
It's probably going to take an equivalent amount of time to
To get
lose
it
it.
off.
And it's not
Exactly.
going to be like a 12-week cut
That's it.
phase. It's going to be a 2-year cut phase.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people like to hear that. But it's just, you know, the truth.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work just as hard as you did to lose that weight as you did to gain that weight.
And like we were saying there, the less you look at what somebody else is doing and stay in your lane and pay attention to your biofeedback, listen to what your coach says, easier that process is mentally.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult not to look at somebody else and say, well, man, you know, this, and this, but that's not you. That's not your situation.
So that's another thing I want to talk about, because I remember last year, me and you kind of worked out together leading up to your Charlotte Flair show, and you were kind of concerned about your health.
Yeah. You actually did my training for part of that prep.
Yeah, which was really cool. That was a real fun experience, and but I got to really see you work, and you didn't complain no matter how low your food was, how high your cardio was, which really showed. I remember telling a lot of people, I was like, he just has the mental mindset for this. That's why he is where he is.
Thank you.
But I remember you were worried a little bit about your health because of some of the stuff you were doing, and you trusted your coach and all that, but I know you decided to part ways. How did you feel compared to your first prep? I know you got extremely lean, but then you did a little bit of a different strategy for the Olympia. Do you feel like that is going to be the route you take for the future, or do you think that there's going to be kind of a mix of stuff you do between the two type of practices? Because I know they were extremely different.
Yeah. So for the people that know who my previous coach was, exceptional coach. He got me where I needed to be, because I started at 275. I was a chubby guy. And he got me peeled to the bone for that first show in Indiana that you see me at, which I won that show, and then went to nationals. He got me there within, I'd say, 50 weeks. And it was not like prep. 25 of those were prep, but it was prep the whole time. Like, I just knew people stepping on stage, even at the amateur level, is a different level of consistency and discipline. So I knew that there's some things that need to be done, whether that's PD usage, cardio, dieting, whatever the case might be. So whenever you understand, if you want to get to destination A, you have to take a right turn. That's where you need to go. There's no other. Stop trying to find other routes to get there. It's just one route. When the GPS tells you that route and there's only one road to get there, that's just that route. It's hard work, dedication, discipline, PEDs, if you're open to that. So when we got blood work back and the extent of our prep, that's what alarmed me. And when I seen the numbers in blood work, again, great coach, for the people that know who I had. But when I seen those blood markers, I was alarmed, and also I got really sick. I was supposed to do the New York Pro. I went to it, and I did not step on stage. And that was after that was after my win. Charlotte, then I did Pittsburgh. We were supposed to do New York Pro. I was really sick. I was there in person, watched it, amazing. Showing from people, they did awesome. But it kind of alarmed me, because I'm like, this is my rookie year, and I'm dealing with this. What is going to happen if we were to do this 5, 6, 7 years down the road? And yes, coaches can be knowledgeable, but if that's something you don't feel like doing, taking a route that you feel uncomfortable with, you have the right to say, hey, I appreciate you did awesome with me. I just want to take a little bit of a different approach. And I had that coach that was 3 to 4 years. You know what I mean? So no complaints. There was an awesome coaching experience. It's just, he got me where I need to be. I just thought I need to pay attention, a little bit more attention to my actual health. So we did a different approach of approaching health first before the Olympia, making sure that my markers were where they needed to be, both hormone and health markers, cholesterol, all those things, and then started a prep for the Olympia. And during the prep for the Olympia, it's probably the lowest amount of PEDs I've ever used. Some people, I hear them, but they use just going to the gym. Like, this is not even competitors. And their cycle is like 3 times worse of what I was. I posted a video, and people were...
They called you a liar on some of those.
A lot of people, and I posted the screenshot from my check-in with my supplement list of what I was taking. I asked my coach if it was okay. He said yes. I posted it. It has the date on there, from the computer. It shows everything. And people still were trying to say, oh yeah, that was daily dosages. I'm like, it says weekly right there. Like, it was not a daily dose. This was, my dosage for the week. But what they don't understand is, number one, I had already put the muscle on. I'm already at a point where I was pretty lean. So I didn't need that much to get into that show, get ready for that show. At the same time, extreme PD usage has been proven over time, like, that is not healthy. You're not going to be able to handle it well as a human being. You're not a bull. Taking tren is for animals. It's not for humans. So you're not going to be able to handle what an animal's taking. So it was way different because, a lot of output was also done during this prep for the Olympia. We were still doing a lot of cardio. We were still doing the diet how it's supposed to be done, but the chemicals were different. And we also paid more attention to my actual health. How am I responding to these chemicals? How am I feeling? You know, am I feeling sick? Because if you're feeling sick during prep, even if you're pushing yourself and you can't do it, something's probably given, you know, kidney, liver, something, your heart, something's probably not working well. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel hungry, but you should not be feeling like your body's about to give out all the time.
Yeah.
So it was way different approaches. This is more health focused, but again, higher dosages have their place. So I'm not saying I'm not going to be using higher dosages. I'm going to use them where they're needed.
Yeah.
And the most healthy way possible, safe way possible. So that was the main difference there. Is just for everybody out there listening to this, you don't need PEDs to begin with, right? If you make that choice, make it safely. Go with a doctor or a coach or both, which I do both. I'm sure you guys do as well. But and if you don't have the genetics in the beginning to do it naturally, you potentially don't have that genetic potential to do it enhanced. So if you're working out 5 to 6, 7 days a week and you're seeing minimal changes, your diet is 100%, your sleep is 100%, then stay there for like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, see how your body responds. Then potentially introduce it if you see you have that genetic potential. Like you can look like a competitor. You could potentially do this if you had a little bit of help. But that's all PEDs are. A little bit of help. It's not what's going to make you, you know?
Right. And like Tyler and I have discussed in the past, you know, the guys that you see that do extremely well, you know, enhanced are the guys that had good structure naturally. Like you can see, like you look at some of the top guys you think of in history, you know, before they began running PEDs, they still looked great and would beat most people on PED.
Absolutely.
And to your point, you know, like my thought process on PEDs is the smallest dose possible for the desired effect.
That's it.
You know, and you're going to respond better when you're healthy. If your body's fighting to keep your organs in check and stuff, it's not going to focus on building muscle.
100%.
It's just not.
100%.
So, a few more questions I want to ask you because there's some good ones that I've had. I've mentioned people you're coming on here.
Yeah.
One, I wanted to know.
Yeah.
In your preps for the Olympia, did you do any refeeds or free meals?
We stopped them, I think, around 15 or 17 weeks out, but I had carbs. So
yeah,
for me, every meal felt like a cheat meal at that point because I was so used to going no carb, like that close to the show, that having carbs on each meal, like having some rice or something in there, a potato, felt exceptional. So I was like, I was not complaining. I was good, you know, and for people, you know, always tell me, are we going to be able to keep my free meals during prep, close to the show? You don't need it. The free meal does not give you any advantage. It's mostly the mental aspect. You're just taking a break from dieting. But is that going to make you better? Absolutely not. Is it going to make you worse? Probably not. But we eliminate any possibility for any error if we don't have the cheat meal in and you have a balanced diet consistently. We don't have to deal with any indigestion, any fluid retention, anything like that.
Controlling the variables are much easier.
I like a calculated free meal if I keep it in.
Yeah.
So typically what I'll do is I'll do like once a week and it's the same thing every week. So it's basically the same exact macronutrients increased. Where I think a lot of people go wrong with refeeds or free meals is they do something different or they start making it bigger as they get hungrier. Yeah. And I think that's where the issue lies. But I think at a certain point in prep where refeeds are more necessary, it's like, say your body stops responding, I like a higher dosage of controlled carbs and fats throughout the day. Yeah. And I think that's a better route to go once you get closer to show.
Calculated refeeds rather than a free meal that's not.
Yeah, because when you have a free meal, like I'll tell some people to take a free meal, and that could be them eating a whole 2 burgers, a large fry, and then they have a pint of Ben and Jerry's. And I'm like, well, that's your calories for 2-3 days right there. So we're in a super surplus.
Any progress we made, we just ate up plus the following week.
So I think they have their place, like you said, more for the mental aspect. Like if you have kids or a husband or wife, I think that's a great strategy to keep that social alignment going while you're in prep. So that doesn't fall apart. Yeah. Because if stuff like that falls apart, I think that's where a lot of the stress comes from.
I agree.
Yeah. You have arguments with your wife and you don't get to spend time with your kids.
Yes.
That's an issue.
Having that balance also mentally with people around you and your loved ones is very important. So like, for example, like whenever I get on prep, because it always surprised me when I said someone, your prep is going to be 20 weeks. And they were, oh, that's long.
Well, it's kind of this idea where people think like they can get shredded in 8 to 12 weeks.
I'm
And
like-
I think it's because some coaches tell them that's possible.
Yeah.
So I'm like you. I'll tell people 20, maybe 24 weeks,
That's
especially
it.
my first time working for
Yes.
you. And I allow that extra time because I know, for example, I might prep somebody and tell them, hey, we can try to get this in 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And we might have like 4 weeks of plateau in there where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we got to make some
Unexpected
changes.
issues you run into. And,
Yeah.
and not to mention too, whenever if we're avoiding like a 8-week prep, we can take our time and the risk of losing tissue becomes less. We can drop that weight in a more controlled manner, control the variables better, monitor your health better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
So-
I've got a guy in prep right now, and he's lost exactly 1.5 to 2.8 pounds, I believe, every single week
Yeah.
since we started prep, and he's down almost 40 pounds. But he's still not where I want him to be.
Right, right.
So I've had to tell him and just be honest with him, like, hey, we're gonna have to lengthen your prep a little bit because I want you to be fully ready. And I think that's something where, as a competitor, you have to be ready to
Yes.
extend and be for sure that you're going to be competitive in your class, because you don't want to just step up on stage.
That's it.
And I don't know where the idea of like a short prep came from, but I think the longer you prep, the better in most cases. And it's actually,
It absolutely is.
And
Yeah.
a better spot can be healthier too, because
Yes.
you can move at a slower pace. You're not burying yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people want to jump into a prep and wait until prep to hire a coach. Well, now he's trying to learn your body on the fly
I'm
and
guessing.
see how you respond to that. You are guessing.
I'm guessing.
Because being
Yeah.
together through an off season allows me to collect data and cross reference, look back and say, okay, they did well with this, they didn't do well with this.
Right.
When this happened, this person, they had issues here, so on. So I can look back at that and make better adjustments moving forward because now I have a data bank of information
Yeah.
to call upon.
I like to work with people, I'd say about at least minimum 3 months before I prep
That's
them.
it.
I think that's my minimum. Some I work with for years before I'm like, all right, we'll let you do a show, because I want to make sure they're in the best spot possible.
Yeah.
My goal, I think, with bodybuilding competitions, like, we want to win. I don't want you just to do it. I want you to have a good
Exactly.
experience. I
Yeah,
want you to
exactly.
keep doing it. I want you to be like, this was awesome.
Yeah, competing and being competitive are two different things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another question I had, okay, and this is a good one because I know what you were doing for your first prep, and
Yeah.
we kind of discussed it. We were like, that's kind of a lot.
I can get in details if y'all
Yeah,
want to.
so this is a good one because your use of AIs, aromatase inhibitors, for your
Yeah.
first prep was like
Extreme.
just like
Extreme.
me and
There
you
was no
talked. We were
reason.
like, that's fucking crazy,
Yeah,
dude.
there
Like
was
you
no
you
reason.
must have felt like
Oh,
complete shit. And you
Yeah.
can kind of tell people what you were on for the first one in comparison to the
Yes.
second one. Talk about that a little bit, because I try to tell people to use less AIs and like how you don't need as much of them. Some people do need a little bit more than others.
Yes.
But in reality, there's better ways. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and whenever I coach people, you have to remember, as a coach, how you coach and your style is probably an accumulated experience of what you've experienced yourself and who you've been coached by, as well as any education you've researched. So you don't have to use AIs. Let's just start there. Number one. Number two, so can I mention like actual substances? Or
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
okay, cool.
Yes,
We talk about everything on here. It's unfiltered, remember?
So I was using Novadex. I was using Arimidex, or anastrozole and Novadex. So, I mean, there's no estrogen there, right? Like, there's no, how much estrogen can you produce whenever you're, sub probably 10% body fat, and taking PEDs potentially only from the aromatization from the actual testosterone or any aromatizing, compound you're taking. So we're crushing my estrogen, and then I was told, to put it in good words, to use letrozole
On top of all that.
on top of all that.
So letrozole isn't something that gets mentioned often. Letrozole is an extremely strong aromatase inhibitor.
Yeah.
So for people listening that aren't familiar with that term, you're probably not familiar with it because it doesn't get used a great deal and you don't hear about it a whole lot. Letrozole is a very potent AI. Sometimes people will throw that in to try and reduce gynecomastia at some point, but it's extremely strong. So
Yes.
Yeah.
for the people that didn't know, I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. So the approach we're taking now as compared to then, DHA derivatives also have not necessarily an AI response, but they mess with the estrogen receptor so much to where you might have blood serum levels of high estrogen, but your actual estrogen is not acting in your body. There's no activity. You don't get gyno. So why not use that in that ratio to kind of, you kind of have to fine tune the dial there, right? So that's a lot of things that we were able to do after the Olympia with my coach, because we haven't been able to have an off season. We need time together so he can learn my body.
Yes.
So this is what we're doing now, where we're finding out this ratio works good for him. His blood markers look good. We don't have any hyperestrogenic effects, stuff like that. But the AI usage, it's extremely neurotoxic. People don't understand. They're like, why? If I'm testosterone dominant, it's the male hormone, so I'll be more muscular. But no. You respond best whenever you have a good relationship within testosterone, estrogen, progesterone.
Yeah.
That's when you'll have a good sex drive. You'll feel good. Even on prep, that yes, some things will be thrown off. But if you have a good relationship or ratios within those three, you'll still feel decent enough to be able to go through the prep. If you throw all these AIs, you're probably going to feel like absolute garbage.
And a lot of the health issues I've seen connected with the AIs. When you start to crush estrogen, we begin to have issues with cholesterol.
Absolutely.
And, we see LDL increase, HDL come down. So a lot of times the AIs are really the issue with the cholesterol and stuff, more so than the gear even sometimes. So, to your point there, adding DHT derivatives and so on in place of that, getting a similar effect without the risk of doing that.
Right.
From a health standpoint especially, it's,
I agree.
So for people wondering what he's talking about with the DHTs and trying to find like a kind of a balance, you use more Masteron and Primo rather than, the AIs to act at that effect without as much damage on your health.
Right.
So he's using like lighter amounts of testosterone with higher amounts of DHTs, which is Primo and Masteron, to get those effects of what people would want or what they think is going to happen from the AIs.
Exactly.
And it's a much healthier approach. It seems to be what a lot more pro level, I would say, are doing now for both growth phases and preps.
Yes, 100%.
Are you doing that right now for your growth phase as well?
That's my base for everything, really. I've had bad response with MPP or DECA. And again, people have great genetics, but how you metabolize compounds or androgens can be completely different than another person. I know individuals that are pros that are taking 1,000 milligrams of test and like 500 milligrams of DECA have no freaking issues.
Yeah.
So if that's worked for you, great. But for me, it didn't. You know what I mean? Like we took that approach. I had gyno, had a whole bunch of stuff that was going on with me that I was not enjoying. So let's not take that approach. So, but yeah, even during my off season, my growth phase, growth season, I used, the only thing I've changed other than the test and the Primo, and I prefer Primo just because it's a little cleaner in general. However, it's very hard to find real Primo.
Yes, it's almost like a risk every time you get it, because it could end up, we've talked about some previous podcast episodes, it could end up being EQ or DECA.
It's a bit more expensive compared to others, so it tends to be counterfeited more for the sake of...
I'll say the truth though, like if you're a pro or if you've been in the industry like you guys have been, you can probably find it for a decent price. It's just that you have to look a little harder and you have to be careful what you're using.
Yeah.
Plus there's other places you can get it tested. Where they'll tell you the purity and what exactly it is, if there's anything impure in it, and the percentage of what you're using if it's impure. Yeah. So don't do the little strips with the color. Those don't work. Those are a scam. Like it's whatever. Just
a Roy test, I think is what those are called.
Like you used to be able to order those on Amazon.
Yeah, and then the thing is, it's like people will test their stuff and it'll be like something pharmaceutical grade, and it'll still tell them that it's something different.
Right. This acetaminophen is oxandrolone.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell?
So that's why, being a competitor, there's a lot of things, man. And if you're taking stuff, even as a natural guy trying to like optimize yourself, there's a lot of factors and variables to consider. Don't just take it. Freaking do your research, be ready for it. And also ask questions. Ask your coach, why are we doing this? If your coach cannot tell you why, that's probably a red flag, because they probably don't know why they're doing it.
Right.
That's the approach we're taking. The only thing I've changed for this growth phase is GH. We've added some GH. Now, do I see a lot of difference from the GH? Not necessarily, but we're not also taking it for an instant response, right? There's cell hyperplasia where you create more muscle cells. Those have the potential to grow over time. So it's an investment on your business, right? If you're having a business, which is your body, and you're trying to make it grow further in the future, GH will be a good way to do so.
I think some guys think of GH, to your point there, they think of GH being like a quick thing. It's like taking it and like jumping on a cycle. And it's like, no, this is a long-term thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take months before you see that.
And it takes a low dose over a long period of time.
Yes.
Your body can only process so much GH. When you put it in your body, it turns into IGF-1, or that conversion happens. How much IGF-1 do you think your liver can actually produce if you take 10 IUs of GH? Yeah. Probably not freaking that much. There's a limit. Like your body can only do so much.
There's a saturation point to any drug.
Yeah.
And that's, correct. So that's, and it's the same with like the gear and everything. Like people take these exceptional dosages, and before long, there's a saturation point, and anything above that is just taxing your system.
Yeah.
That's it.
One question on the GH, because I'm sure people want to know, because this is a hot topic going around.
Right.
Do you use generics or pharmaceutical?
Dude.
Or do you think there's a difference?
He said, dude.
So this is the problem with pharma grade and generics. If you use a lot of generic, you're probably going to get the same effect as a pharmaceutical, but at a cheaper price if you were to break it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I seen someone that owns an actual HRT clinic that posted that on their story the other day. It's if you can make sure that your generic is, get it tested, see how much you get per that vial, and then you can dial it from there and see price gauge which one is going to be better. Obviously, pharmaceutical will be best because you'll know what you put in your body.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to look at the price. Again, we're bodybuilders. We don't make too much money from competing. So this is one of the few times I'm using GH.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't see it as something that's going to give me instant results, but it's something cool in addition to have whenever you're at that point where you're like, okay, I've deployed most of the things. What else can I do without increasing the androgenic load or side effects or any risk?
Yeah.
GH is a good one. Insulin is another great one. Metformin, telmisartan. There's all the other things you can get from an HRT clinic that will help you optimize yourself at that point, you know?
Yeah, I've noticed with a lot of people, with coaches, they either are very extreme on like, you have to use pharmaceutical, but then you have the argument where I think a lot of the generics these days are just as good if you get the right ones. And it really is about sourcing and where you're getting it from. But, you know, I know of a lot of really, really solid pros that like whenever somebody will comment this stuff where it's like, you should only use pharmaceutical grade, they'll be like, well, I guess my generics don't work then. And it'll be like somebody just ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's like, and you look at them and you're like, okay, well, you know, if that person's using generics, then they probably work. But we got a little bit more to go today. I think there's one more topic we wanted to talk about. You travel a ton.
Yes.
You probably are in a different state or a different city. I think every single week, your last prep almost. Me and you were prepping around the same time, and we'd be like, we would try to meet up to train, and you'd be like, I'm in Vegas this week, and then the next week you'd be in Texas, and then the next week. What do you do to travel whenever you're trying to bring your food and stay on track when you're prepping for something as big as the Olympia or a pro show?
It's an easy question, is the answer to that. You prep your meals, you take them with you, and if you cannot, there's multiple other options out there. I've used, and you've probably seen that a lot, I've used microwavable rice with microwavable chicken breast from Walmart down the street from my hotel room, and I microwaved it. Yeah. I remember my Optimum Classic show. I went from Junior USA's, which was in Charlotte, straight to Optimum. And I did not know I was doing that show. My wife booked it the night of because she was like, I'm very confident you're going to get your pro card. So after prejudging, she booked the show. And then after, she was like, well, I talked to your coach. You go in there next week. So I flew there, and she flew back because she had work. So I flew there, and I brought frozen tilapia with me and egg whites. And at that point, I was doing no carbs. So I didn't even have my veggies. So I was like, I'm in the hotel room. I don't have a car. And I'm so depleted, I don't want to go nowhere. I had salt, tilapia, and egg whites. And I YouTubed, how do you make tilapia and egg whites in the microwave? And I
oh, God.
Dude, I freaking, and honestly, it wasn't bad. It was just like you cooked it on a pan or in the oven.
Right.
It's not that hard. Like, people make it seem like it's so hard. Like, that was an extreme situation where I did not want to freaking go nowhere. I could easily, Uber Eats a salad. Like, every menu at every restaurant has a salad. And you can tell them, put the toppings on the side so you can choose what you want to eat. Or track your freaking macros. Like, see what your macros for your meals are and try to match them within 10 to 20% of discrepancy. You'll be fine. You'll still, be on plan. So that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, when you travel, easiest way to do it, get your bag, put some ice in there or whatever, put your meals in there. You can go through TSA with them. I promise. I've done it multiple times if you're traveling, I've gone with my TRT on the plane. So if you can go in there and they will not flag that, I promise you, your food is not going to be an issue. Worst case scenario, they'll open it. Oh, it's food. Cool. Close it back. Good to go.
The only foods that you should be careful of taking is anything that's in a liquid form. Yeah. That's what
the only thing I've ever had thrown away is peanut butter.
Yeah. The only thing I like taking,
you probably put stuff in there.
Well, this was unopened, but still, they said it was a liquid.
Yeah.
And they tossed It was good peanut butter too. When I was upset.
There's some stuff they're strict on. I think it's a discrepancy of the individual employee and how power hungry they are.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they've taken like my overnight oats before because they're like, these are too runny, and I'm like, it's oats, man. Come on, like it's literally just some oats and some blueberries. Like, let me go.
I did cream of rice, and they didn't say anything. But
Really?
like you said, though, sometimes they're power hungry. You know what I mean? And
It's
they're
just like they just want to mess with you. They're like,
Yeah.
it's, and I think one airport, it's funny that it's a Charlotte airport is one place where I think they took like all my food. And
I hate that.
It's very frustrating. I had 3 meals packed and they took all of them.
Whenever I flew to Connecticut in 19 to see a WBFF show before I competed in the one I did in June, and I packed all my meals. I put them in small bags, portioned it all, put it in a larger bag, put it in with my ice packs, just like he was discussing.
Yeah.
Took it on the flight with me.
No, it's just right.
That's just it. I mean, it's really not that difficult.
It's very rare. That'll happen once out of 10 times. How many times are you going to fly in a year? You know what I mean?
Right.
We travel way more because we go to different shows for clients. We, you know, if we can do it and be fine throughout the year, I'm sure. And I have clients all the time that do it. Like they're like, and they won't even tell me, hey, I had to go hunting this week, so we had to sleep out in the woods. But I brought all my meals, and I freaking ate all my meals. I was good. So if it's so easy for you to do to where you don't even have to message me about it and just do it and just put it on your check-in form that, hey, this is what I did, but I was on track. Everybody should be able to do it. It's nothing hard to do. You know what I mean?
It's literally just packing your meals
That's
up.
it.
You can eat exactly the stuff that you're usually eating.
That's it.
I have some that think they need to change around their whole diet because they're flying, and I'm like, you can put your chicken and your rice into a Tupperware container, and you can eat it cold, especially if you're in prep.
Yeah.
It's just what has to happen. Sometimes my only difference I'll do is if I have rice and it doesn't stay well when it's cold, I'll do white rice cakes.
Yeah, there you go.
And the same
Easy
equivalent
fix.
amount of carbs. So, you know, say I'm doing a half cup or 75 grams of rice, I will do, I think that's 3 white rice cakes.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll do sweet potato because they go down a little easier cold.
Yeah.
And like dry cold rice is a little harder sometimes. So I'll do sweet potatoes in place.
I agree.
I think the thing is, if you want to prep and you want to win,
You'll do whatever it takes.
You got
That's
to
it.
do whatever it takes. And if you think traveling is going to be such a hindrance to your goals and that you can't do it, you're probably not built for
Life
it.
doesn't stop when you start prep.
That's it.
Like everything still happens. People still live their lives around you. You still got to do the same thing. So, making those adjustments to do that. I mean, that's the difference in your placing.
Yeah. And it never crossed my mind that this is challenging. I was just like, this is the turn I have to make. I'm not going to make it. If I make it, then I'll win. If I don't, I won't. So it's an easy dilemma for me. It's not like something that I'll sit on for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are going to make it the whole day. They'll text me. They're like, hey, so I'm at McDonald's, man. And I don't know what to get to make it healthy. I'm like, why are you at McDonald's? That's the first question.
Oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why didn't you choose something like Chipotle or like a salad from somewhere else?
Exactly.
Why didn't you text me? Why are we not discussing this?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people want the easy route. They're like, what can I do that tastes good instead of what's going to get me
The results.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
sometimes that's the out. It's like, well, I didn't have my meal and we got stuck here, so I had to eat a
You know how
double
many times
cheeseburger. I
I've
said,
had
no,
people
you
drop
didn't.
their meal randomly, or they're like, I dropped my meal on the ground in the parking lot.
But thankfully, I'm outside Pizza Hut.
Thankfully, there's a Subway right here. Like, and I'm like,
I know this is
okay.
gonna sound disgusting, but I think I was in a hotel room and I dropped like a piece of chicken breast or something. But when you're in prep, piece of chicken breast is like
That's
gold.
it, man. 10
You know what
second
I mean?
rule.
So I went and rinsed it, and I'm telling you, it was not a clean hotel. I'm not proud of this. So I rinsed it off. I microwaved it so I can kill any bacteria that's on there.
That's it.
Yeah, and I just ate it.
And then I got a penicillin shot and I was okay.
But like, I mean, it's not that hard, man.
Yeah,
It's food. You just need fuel to keep going, and you need a certain kind of fuel. It's like a gas station. You'll find a gas station at some point. You have to refuel. Don't see food as enjoyment. See it as what needs to be eaten to keep moving.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's the best way to look at it. Food is what you put in your body for performance to get results.
And during prep, that's your job.
Yep.
It really is.
That's
And
it.
if you say the show's important and you want to place well, this is what it takes.
Yes.
And you hear him talking about it, and he's competed on the biggest stage in the world. So, with that being said, that's when the sooner you get that in your mind and the sooner you take that approach, that's what the guys that do well on every stage of the game are doing.
Yep.
They're prioritized.
Yeah.
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 I think that's it for today.
Awesome.
Danny, go and tell people where they can find you on Instagram or.
My Instagram handle is @BlackRambo, @Black Rambo.
It's such a cool
yeah,
Instagram name.
Other than that, I mean, Fabode Fitness on Instagram, you'll find us there. Thank you to Clinical Labs for being awesome to me. They've been sponsoring me now since like 2 years, I think. Yeah. So it's been an awesome relationship. You know what I mean? Great supplements overall, and I use them on a daily basis. But thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Lots of cool, insightful stuff. I think people really enjoy.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
This has been Bedson and Coffey Unfiltered. Thank you guys for listening.
Make sure to go follow us on social media.